How's everybody? it's a it's a full house. We can imagine everybody else is listening to us.
It's better on a last day, so
Yes,
you can't
exactly.
ask for anything better than this.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll get going. I'm Rory. I'm from Unity, and and many of you would say, well, why is the game maker here? I don't know, but uh, I think as we go through this, you'll see that gaming is really kind of the idea of using a gaming engine is really evolved into industry. So we'll kind of go through that. So
I think the easiest way to say it is like, I think in our booth, somebody was saying, oh, you are in the insurance corner, it's boring. And then he said, oh, wow, there's 3D technology, so it's interesting. So that way, I think Unity makes it more interesting for us, Rory. Hello, everyone. My name is Shiva Balasubramanian, Chief Innovation Officer for Capgemini for the insurance business. Two responsibilities, either to make money or save money using innovation. That's why I'm here. Nice to meet you all. Rory, I think we've got a 15-minute timer that's already on the way. We want to talk about the topic of using 3D, which is what we have done for leveraging digital twin for insurance. Before we begin, I think for everyone's benefit, there is a 3D glass under your chair. I was just joking, guys. Come on. All right. So there is, we are going to talk a little bit about what is, the whole concept of 3D and how we are applying it in the, in the insurance world. Rory, maybe before we begin, do you want to give a bit of a background to the audience around what is this real-time 3D technology? Where have you used it?
Mm-hmm.
I think, how many of you in this room have used Candy Crush? Need for Speed 3. It's all built on Unity.
That is true. There's a lot of games based on Unity. So I mean, what I've done is not only built games. So a long time ago, whether it's big, massive games, and where we've come with real-time 3D, as you can see from the videos, is really this idea of real-time 3D or games are really collaborative online. So if you think of a big online game, you can be collaborative by yourself, but it's a completed world, right? So one of the things that game does is it really kind of brings a completed world. So a lot of us for the last few years have really kind of thought of, well, how does real-time 3D really enhance and change industry? And we've actually come a long ways from POCs. So real-time 3D is really kind of enhancing the experience. So as you can see, what happens is it's really about build, operate, and train. So if you think of the idea of putting together disparate data, putting it into a world where now you can collectively, you're either collaborating with the experience of that building, that product, or you're actually collaborating together. And so what real-time 3D does is bring kind of a moment of truth for all the data. Whether you've got, architectural drawings, BIM data, you've got IoT data, and how do you train in that experience is really about, you have to first get that data there. But so real-time 3D really kind of brings out this idea of here's your space, here's your environment. Now what do you want to do with it? And you actually can build on top of that. So if you think of, the way I look at it is we always imagine tomorrow, but what real-time 3D does is get you there today. So if we think of Iron Man, so any of us who watched Iron Man, you know how he had his design of his suit, and it was holographic, and he was taking parts and he was throwing them in the bin, and then he was telling the computer, hey, render this out and do whatever. Yes, that's fantasy, but it's not that much of a fantasy, right? So that's when you think about that scene where he's actually playing with that image, that's really a building or maintaining a building or a house or training in that house. It's we see the world, we can spin that world, we can collaborate on that world, and we can actually then now do simulations on that world. So we can actually replay that all the time. We can simulate it and say, okay, this is what happened. But that simulation is based on the real movement, whether it's IoT data, whether it's people data, and you drive that through AI. Anyway, so there's a little bit about real-time 3D.
I think that begs the question around what does it mean to insurance, right? I think we have used 3D in the concept of what we call as a digital twin, which is using leveraging these new technologies and emerging models to help insurance carriers bring better visibility, reduce risk, and also understand the relationship between risk and the pricing. What did we use the digital twin for? It's a virtual representation of a physical object. So we could create a digital twin of the stadium, understand what is the risk of so many people walking in. There is a slip and fall. Can there be a claim if something goes wrong? If there is a big water loss, there could be a interruption to this whole event, which means a lot of claims cost. So how do you simulate all of that in real time? And that is that was one of the questions that we actually undertook with one of the carriers in the US. They came back and said, like, you know what, we have a big NFL stadium. That NFL stadium had a water leak, and there were 2 games that had to be cancelled. 2 games, not any games, 2 NFL games that have to be cancelled, and that resulted in 4.5 million business interruption claims. So now imagine if you could create a digital twin of that stadium using the 3D technology that Rory talked about, and be able to simulate a fire or a water or damages, understand what could be, how do you contain those damages so that it doesn't become a catastrophic loss, and then use that to educate people. And I think Rory will talk a little bit about the training and knowledge management, and use that to understand at the point of sale of an insurance policy is much more easier. How many of you here have insurance policies? Auto, home. Anyone has commercial policies, commercial insurance? How many of you have how many times do you interact with your insurance customer? Once, twice, once in a 6 months for renewals? That is also auto pay now. Nobody does that. So the whole idea of using digital twin and all of these concepts is to bring a little bit more positive touch points with the insurance carrier. Most of the work that we do is with claims, which is negative touch point in most places. That's also the moment of truth, in terms of how committed your insurance carrier is. So imagine if you could bring this digital twin and use this during your sale process. If you own a big stadium, or if you own a big property or a yoga studio, you can then actually generate risk, simulate risk, and then price it, educate them, your customers, so they can continuously serve data, which you could use it to monitor on an ongoing basis. It is a massive, massive value, from reduction in risk, better pricing for you as a customer, better value for insurance carrier because it's lesser loss because you are able to monitor that property. I know we talked a little bit about the knowledge management and training and how you use these technologies in that respect. If you want to spend a minute or two.
Yeah, we can go to the next slide too, because it shows a little bit. So if we think of one of the biggest worries is really how do you get your world, your house, your stadium, how do you get it into a 3D model? The ability to do that, the cost of doing that is coming down tremendously, and it's really about taking drone data. So there's a couple of just quick sources of it. So you think of the car. So the car, put a camera on a car, drive around the streets. And what we do now is live. So we've moved away from LiDAR. We've moved away from a lot of expensive ways. And so we actually just live create that video into a 3D world. And so you can now do that with a drone. You can do that through anything to get it. But one of the things you do is you realize that once you get that world in there and you start to think of doing simulations, so we think of training. So if we're in that stadium, there's a water leak. A couple of things you do instantly is you can actually simulate, because you can put people into this world, and we can actually, the thing about a live world is you can actually simulate and see where people movement is. So you can then go, okay, there was a water leak. How long did it take to get an alert out to somebody to come and fix it? Where did all the people go? What happened to it? So you can run simulations and see, okay, well, we actually have to change the way we've actually designed to be able to kind of fix that. The other thing is if we say there's a fire, so we have a fire in a building, pretty serious. The challenge is all of us, when we were kind of, we kind of do fire drills, it's like, okay, here we go, it's lunch, okay, we're going to go down the stairs and stand in the lawn. doesn't create the stress that's going to happen. So now I got the world, right? So I've got the stadium. I can now simulate. You can do VR. You can do it on a phone, but VR is amazing the way it goes. I can actually put you into that world. I can put you into that fire. You go around the corner and there's a fire there. That anxiety, now we can actually now watch where are people going. They're always rushing to that door there. And we can actually start simulating that. So you can actually run through training and even to the homes, right? So say we get home insurance. Well, there's water leaks, there's fire leaks. Certain devices, we all have IoT devices. How do we train on that IoT device? It's not a manual, so let's actually run people through, okay, what happens if that water leaks in the house? This is how you turn that IoT device off. So it really starts to bring a visual experience to training people, operating it, and hopefully, stopping some of the events.
And I think it begs the question around why we are using digital twin. I think simulating these in real world is expensive and super costly. A good example would be, I was talking to a friend in Pratt and Whitney, who manufacture big engines. Then they want to test their engines. They do throw dust particles and others in the engine to simulate quite a bit of understanding on what how does the engine respond back when you have those those dust particles. You cannot do it because it's millions of dollars. Can you use a digital twin to simulate that? Absolutely yes, right? So it's a great training. It allows you for better training. It provides a better ownership on your digital asset. Then you can actually simulate in real time and keep that evolving over a period of time, because there are always new risks, new sources of data that comes in every now and then. So how do you keep yourself updated? I think all of that helps us in big ways for training, or ongoing, risk monitoring and others. So, all right. So I think, one area where I would probably, devs, I think we have if you come to our booth in 840, we can actually show a live demo of how we are simulating risks, for home and, as well as commercial properties. You can have a little bit more fun. You can light a fire. You can actually, be an arsonist a little bit for fun, and also, drive some, some water damages and see how it is and what exactly does it do to your property and claims, per se. But having said that, I wanted to, talk about our partnership, and I think with Unity, we are extremely excited at Capgemini, to bring the power of the 3D technology and the expertise that comes along with it, and our insurance domain expertise, so we can actually blend both together to do a number of things. Number one, to help our customers reduce the turnaround time for any insuring a large property, reducing the risk, optimizing the cost, especially, or improving the, providing most of the customers who are interested here is around trying to understand, get a profitable organic growth, right? So how do you drive profitable organic growth using, emerging tech and, innovations today in that space? Any closing, concluding, sessions with you?
Now, when I look at, I'm looking at this, so these are all real world examples for us. This is what we've done. These are use cases. The one I like in the middle where he's holding an iPad up against a wall, we've actually started to do this more and more. When we think of insurance or looking, you actually, so there's a use case. For me, it's always about ROI, right? So everybody thinks about a game engine, who cares? This stuff is hard to do. So once you get the world, once you get the stadium, once you get it in, and we pull it off of BIM data, we pull it off of everything, you now can put a iPad, a phone, or anything up against a wall, and you can actually see everything in behind that wall, whether it's actually the designs, the wiring, but if you've got sensors, now you can actually start to put it against to say, okay, there's water damage, there's heat going. So you actually can bring real world quick examples once you have that world.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, because if you look at, I think in our booth, when you come down, you will actually see a live demo of us being able to use this to scan a building, generate a home, add water sensors, understand what is an impact it could do on your price from an insurance policy standpoint. Feel free to stop by as you go through this. With that, I think we are right at the top of the hour, so we will end it with a small video. We can play the audio on the video.